Hello, John, a happy place. This week we are completing drawing, but a drawing where you push the boundaries of the object. So you're not drawing one object and it's very separate from the background. We're doing one big scribble and objects become kind of born from the background. You can work with a normal pen, like a biro, you can use fine liners, and it's just about, seeing how you don't have to be so much about the boundary of the object. Is it correct, incorrect? When you start just blurring those boundaries, it becomes really interesting and dynamic piece of work. Have fun. Bye bye. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to show you example of this artwork done with two fine liners, but feel free to use black pens, and biro pens are okay. Preferably if you can find something that is one pen that is thinner and one that is a bit thicker, that's ideal, because the thin one we be using for the scribble background and the thicker one just to get the shapes out. But if not, what you can do as well with just one pen, even biro pen, just press it really gently for your first layer of the background, and then when we're pulling shapes out and shading them, shading objects, to just press it harder. So you can do that with a single pen, but I'm using two for demonstration. So those are just fine liners, and this one is quite thin, this one is quite thick. I'm going to start with a very gentle scribble lines of the thin one, and I will decide which area I'm working on by just using some area on the paper. I don't want to use everything because it gives me more interesting result. So it'd be like a bit of like a frame. So I'm thinking I'm going to be working in this kind of 3/4 area, and I'm just marking this area first gently. So this is like my canvas, and this is going to be covered with scribbles fully. There's still some white areas visible, and you can see I'm holding it at the top, so I'm not pressing it too hard, and the scribbles are quite loose. Okay, so that is my background. Now I'm going to draw some shapes, and you can do that from imagination. You can do a bit of still life if you fancy. You can do anything really, but the point is to incorporate them with the background by working the same way, so starting with the lots of scribbles, but then also using thicker pen or fine liner for those darker areas. So it is like you continue the scribble, but then you are bringing some shapes out. So let me just think if I would like a shape of maybe a glass or a bucket. That looks more like a bucket. Okay, so your first stage is just gently outlining where that shape would be before we move to shading and giving it more 3D appearance. At the moment, we just want them to be partially coming out of the scribble background, and when I'm around that, I'm even making those scribbles into the object. So let me come up with maybe something like a bottle. This can be very loose, you're just marking. Because you will be going over that, and you'll be pushing those boundaries between objects and background quite heavily. So okay, when you have your first lines and you kind of know where the objects are going, this is about deciding where you're going to have the darker side, where it's going to be the lighter side, and still working with those scribble kind of effect, giving a little bit of shading to those objects by bringing more dark areas, more visible. You can move between two pens, sometimes creating the mid value still with the that first pen you used. So you're just getting them out of the scribbles, but be quite loose here. So see where I'm not having solid outlines. I'm not really, still going around the outlines, bringing them and joining those objects with the background. And still using scribbling. I'm sorry if people can hear the cat going crazy now, but I'm in the middle of filming and the cat is of course trying to get into the room. Okay, so here I'm still using the first pen, so that shows you also that you could be working just with one pen. But if you happen to two pens, you see with the thick one, you can just emphasize sometimes those edges. That's what it gives you. Okay, and just remember you can bring this object back to the scribble background by going with your scribble lines in between the edge and the background. So I'm going to carry on working on this a bit more on shadows and maybe the background, and I come back to you. It's just back and forth now between the object and background, trying to blur those borders between them. So there's still border with a line, but it's kind of not that solid. Okay, so this is where I am so far, and again, this is something I probably could carry on with for a while. I just wanted to show you, how you carry on with those scribbles. And look what's happening here. I'm going in between the object and background. So it's constant movement in between the background, which is scribbled anyway, and the boundaries of the object. So it becomes like kind of, it emerges from the background, and some areas are just making darker by going over and over there and bringing them, they become more visible. So for example, here we had this leaf of the plant, and here as well I'm thinking, okay, there could be darker here, so just going darker. So this is really interesting, where you do and complete your drawing by going from one place to another. You're not tied up to be in one place, one object. You can cross the boundaries. It's just one big scribble, really. So have a go. Try it with maybe normal pen, with fine liner if you have fine liner, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you create.